Joining me right now, we have Molly Jong-Fast, the host of the Fast Politics podcast and special correspondent at Vanity Fair. We also have Melanie Zanona, senior congressional reporter for Punchbowl News and an MSNBC political contributor. I'm glad to have you both here. Molly, before I ask you the question I want to start with, did you hear that soundbite from Donald Trump there at Coachella that Jake Traylor just played when he goes off on, you don't have anything like a voting booth in California. They take ballots, they send them all over the place. So corrupt, so corrupt. You've been following him so carefully for so long. Is there a word or a condition you're using to describe this sort of discourse?
I mean, he calls it the weave, right? Where he has stories that are maybe unrelated and he puts them together. It's the weave. He doesn't sound as sharp as he did a decade ago, though, and that's probably the understatement of the year. He goes sort of very tangentially. Look, in these rallies, what he's doing is, especially going to California, I think he's trying to make a case that, to sort of shop some of these ideas. In Aurora, he was doing this whole anti-immigrant thing. He had this idea to reenact this law from the 1700s that was how they sold internment camps during the Second World War. I mean, the message is really dark and really scary. It is not the traditional closing message of a normal campaign, but again, None of this is normal.
And looking at the NBC News poll that was released today, it shows Trump pulling even with Harris right now. That has erased a 5-point advantage that she had even just last month. What has changed in your mind, Molly? And is there enough time for either candidate to now pull ahead of Election Day?
I think the vibes may have shifted. I'm not convinced that it's over for her by any stretch of the imagination. I'd still rather be her than him. She has $1 billion. She's going to all the swing states. And look, she has very high favorability. This is not 2016. She goes somewhere, she campaigns. It's better for her campaign. So it's not where with Hillary, you would send her a place. It might not necessarily help. That was what happened in Wisconsin. This campaign is very focused, and they're doing a ton of digital advertising, and they're out there. And remember, I think it's really important to remember, the Harris campaign wants you to think she's losing because that's how they've run this whole time, right? They want you to think she's the underdog. That's what they always say. The Trump campaign wants you to think he's winning because he is either way, and we all know this. And he said this, right? He's planning to dispute the election results no matter what, unless he wins, right? So I just want you to keep that in your head when you look at all these polls. Again, I'm not saying that the polls are wrong. I'm not saying that she may not win. I'm just saying that we have 23 days and they are laser focused. And I would still, all things being equal, rather be her than him.
So, Melanie, the new NBC News reporting suggests that Harris's team has been discussing ways to try to differentiate herself from President Biden. That includes weighing how she can put some distance, actually, between them. What do you make of this strategy?
Yeah, well, I think Kamala Harris has really struggled so far to articulate how she would be different than a President Joe Biden. And I think she's trying to walk this really thin line here, right? Because on the one hand, she wants to carve out her own lane. She wants to show people what she would do with a presidency. And she does want to create some distance because Biden is still really unpopular. His numbers have improved since he did drop out of the presidential race. But there are some risks to being so closely tied to him. But on the other hand, she wants to be able to run on the pieces of his agenda that were popular. She was a part of a lot of the decision making, the infrastructure bill, for example. So she wants to be able to hug those pieces of the agenda tightly. And that is what we're seeing her do right now. But I would argue for Kamala Harris, one of the biggest strengths and one of the biggest differences is the way she is a messenger, the way she is stylistically so different than President Joe Biden. Obviously, she's a younger, fresh face. And I think at the end of the day, whichever candidate is going to win is going to be the one that, in the eyes of voters, believe is the true agent of change.
Right. So, Molly, today, Kamala Harris spoke at a church in North Carolina. It's all part of her Souls to the Polls effort. And it's the start of a so-called Blue Wall Battleground Blitz. Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, they are spending this week hitting every major battleground through Saturday. What do you make of this strategy? Here we are, 23 days out from Election Day. I mean, do you think it's good timing?
Yeah. Oh, this is very smart. And this is exactly what they should be doing. And this is what everybody says. Look, she's very good. And Melanie had a really good point, which is she's actually quite a good orator, much, much, much more lively a speaker. And it really does a good rally speech in a way that I mean, Trump does a complicated rally speech, but her rally speeches are really good. People really like them. She has a style that's all her own, right? That's a little bit rhetorical and that's pretty interesting. And she sort of cracked the code of being a woman presidential candidate in a really interesting way. She projects strength, but still is herself. And that is no small feat. So I think it's really great. Another thing to think about is that she, unlike Donald Trump, has all these presidents who can go on the go out and work for her. So she's sending Clinton to the southern states, right, which makes a lot of sense. She's got Barack Obama going around on the campaign for her, and he's a really good messenger. And remember, Obamacare just gets more and more popular. And I think, and then she's also got Biden to some degree out there. So I actually think those are hugely helpful for her.
Let me ask you a question on immigration, Molly, because Democrats appear to have evolved their message a little bit on the topic. The New York Times is talking about her Univision town hall on Thursday, saying, quote, the vice president underscored how much her hardline immigration message has focused on enforcement rather than reform, as former President Donald J. Trump uses the border to paint Ms. Harris as a weak and ineffective leader. So the question is this a 2024 election shift, or is it a different take for the Democratic Party going forward?
Well, so I would say I think something about Harris is I actually think she's not as lefty as Biden in certain ways. And she's always, and that was something that hurt her in the 2020 primary contest, is that she's actually a prosecutor, you know, and she has these kind of like when she gave this speech at the border, she talked all about, you know, the things that make fentanyl and the cartels that run fentanyl. So she's very targeted when it comes to this stuff, which I actually think would be great for that kind of thing. Americans, if you look at Ruben Gallego in Arizona, you see a candidate who is running on border enforcement in this new sort of democratic way of, and again, I don't think it's, look, the problem is there is not a path, there is not money for border enforcement or for processing. So you really find yourself in a situation where there is, you know, you have people who are just in limbo for years and years and years. So it needs to be fixed. And I think it helps Democrats that there was originally this James Lankford border bill that Trump then told them not to go with.
Yeah. That's something we've heard a lot of. It's been brought up. Melanie, House Speaker Mike Johnson was on Meet the Press this morning and discussed the chances of a national abortion ban. Listen to this.
I understand there's not a consensus, but would you move to ban abortion at the national level?
I couldn't do that even if I wanted to, Kristen. I have 434 colleagues. I mean, I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe in the sanctity of life. That's my view doesn't change. But there's no way I could bring that bill in Congress right now. We wouldn't even, we couldn't even get I don't know, it would be a very small vote right now, okay, even among Republicans. So we have a lot of work to do.
So, Melanie, based off your own reporting, is he right? And could we see a vote after the election with a new and perhaps differently shaped Congress?
Well, listen, abortion is a losing issue for Republicans, right? They can change the message all they want, which we have seen some swing state candidates in these critical races do, but it's the policy that is the problem. Donald Trump knows that. Speaker Mike Johnson knows that. But if you listen to his response there to Kristen, he was doing a little verbal gymnastics. Notice he did not say that he doesn't want to put it on the floor, and he didn't say that he wouldn't put it on the floor if they did have the margins. I mean, he's absolutely right that in this current Congress, there's no way it could get through the current House. They only have a 4-seat margin. And of course, it would go nowhere in the Democratic controlled Senate, would not be signed into law. But if Republicans do sweep control of Congress and also have Donald Trump in the White House, I'm telling you right now, there is going to be enormous pressure from the right flank, from conservatives, from Christian evangelicals to put something on the floor, right? Not sure that it's going to be an outright federal ban. It might be, but they're going to put something on the floor that would restrict abortion access. This is something Republicans have ran on for 50 years. And if they have control of Washington, I just don't think that this issue completely goes away, no matter what they're saying just a few weeks before the election, Alex.
Okay. Melanie Zanona, Molly Jong-Fast. This was a great conversation. Come back and see me if you can next weekend. Appreciate you both.